Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin tonight's chilling story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new horror tale. And I have a question for you. What city are you watching from? And what time is it there right now? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read your comments with great excitement, and I love seeing where everyone is watching from around the world. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin tonight's terrifying story. The first mistake I made was stopping at that motel. The second was believing the woman behind the desk when she told me room 0 was just a numbering mistake. My name is Adam. I was 29 at the time, and I was driving from St. Louis to Denver for a new job. I'd packed my whole life into the back of my Honda Civic, 2 suitcases, a box of books, my laptop, and a framed photo of my sister and me from the year before. It was supposed to be a clean start. New city, new apartment, new job, new version of myself. But somewhere in western Kansas, the rain started. Not normal rain. The kind that turns the highway into black glass. The kind where every truck passing you feels like it's throwing a wall of water across your windshield. My GPS signal kept dropping. My phone was at 12%, and I was so tired that twice I caught myself drifting over the lane markers. So when I saw the motel sign glowing ahead, half broken and buzzing in the rain, I didn't care how bad it looked. The sign said, "Vacancy." Under it, in smaller red letters, one word flickered on and off: rest. I pulled in around 11:30 p.m. There were only 3 cars in the lot, all parked far apart like they didn't want to be associated with each other. The motel was one long building, 2 floors, with a covered walkway and yellow lights that made the rain look dirty. Inside the office, everything smelled like wet carpet and old coffee. The receptionist was a woman in her late 50s, maybe older, with gray hair pinned so tightly it looked painful. She didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, she looked like she'd been waiting. "Need a room?" she asked. "Just one night," I said. "Whatever's cheapest." She typed something into an old computer, though the screen was turned slightly away from me. Her nails clicked against the keys, slow and deliberate. Then she stopped. "I only have room 0. I laughed a little because I thought she was joking. "Room 0? That's right. I've never heard of a room 0. Her face didn't change. "Most guests haven't. I should have left then. I know that now. But I was exhausted, soaked, and stupid in the way people get when they just want a bed." She slid a key across the counter. Not a card. A real metal key with a plastic tag. "Room 0. End of the hallway," she said. "Last door." I glanced at the map on the wall behind her. It showed rooms 1 through 24. There was no room 0. "Is it on another floor?" I asked. "No," she said. "End of the hallway." Something about her tone made me stop asking questions. My room was at the farthest end of the first floor corridor. I passed rooms 12, 14, 16, then the numbers stopped making sense. After room 24, there was another stretch of hallway I hadn't noticed from outside. It seemed too long for the building. The carpet was darker there, almost black, and the lights hummed louder. At the very end was a plain brown door. Room 0. Inside, it looked normal. Too normal, actually. 2 lamps. 1 bed. A faded painting of a lake. A small TV bolted to the dresser. A Bible in the drawer. A bathroom with cracked tiles and towels folded into stiff squares. I locked the door, set the chain, and stood there listening. Nothing. Just rain tapping the window. I told myself I was being dramatic. Motels are creepy when you're tired. Everything feels worse at midnight. I took a shower, changed into sweatpants, plugged in my phone, and turned on the TV for background noise. At first, it was static. Then the picture sharpened. It showed a motel room. My motel room. From above. I froze with the remote in my hand. On the screen, I could see the bed, the dresser, the open suitcase, and me, standing in front of the TV, staring up at myself. My heart sank into my stomach as the door clicked shut behind me, and I realized I was completely alone. Someone was watching, and I had no way out. I looked up at the ceiling. No camera. No vent. No hole. No smoke detector. Nothing. I waved my hand slowly. On the TV, the version of me waved back. I unplugged the TV. The screen stayed on. That's when the phone rang. Not my cell. The motel phone beside the bed. I stared at it for 3 rings before picking it up. A man's voice whispered, "Guest confirmed." I hung up so hard the receiver bounced. Then the lock clicked. Not the chain. Not the deadbolt I'd turned myself. Something inside the door locked from the outside with a heavy metallic clunk. I ran to it and pulled. Nothing. I pounded on the door. "Hello? Hey, open this." The hallway outside stayed silent. At exactly midnight, the intercom above the door crackled. I hadn't even noticed there was an intercom. A flat voice said, "Checkout is not available for this guest." I grabbed my phone. No service. Not one bar. The battery still said 12%, even though it had been charging for nearly half an hour. On the TV, I saw myself standing in the room. But behind me, in the corner near the bathroom, there was someone else. I spun around. No one. I looked back at the screen. The corner was empty again. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed with my back to the wall, holding my car keys between my fingers like they could protect me from whatever this was. Around 3 a.m., the TV changed. The camera angle was now from the hallway outside my door. I saw room 0. Then I saw the receptionist standing in front of it. She turned slowly toward the camera and smiled. A knock came from the door. 3 soft taps. I didn't move. The knock came again. Then her voice, gentle now. "Adam, you left your receipt at the desk." I had never told her my name. I backed into the bathroom and locked myself inside. I don't know how long I stayed there. At some point, the lights went out. The room became black except for the thin gray glow under the bathroom door. Then, from the other side, someone whispered, "We can wait." Morning came quietly. The door unlocked by itself at 7 a.m. I didn't pack. I grabbed my phone, my wallet, and my car keys and ran. The corridor was normal again. No extra stretch. No room 0 behind me when I turned around. Just rooms 20, 22, and 24. At the front desk, the same receptionist was pouring coffee into a paper cup. I slammed the key on the counter. What the hell was that room? She looked at me like I was a stranger. "I'm sorry. Room 0, I said. "You gave me room 0 last night." Her eyes moved to the key. Then back to me. "Sir," she said, "we don't have a room 0. I pointed toward the hallway. "You sent me there." She reached under the counter and pulled out a guest ledger. "Only 3 rooms occupied last night," she said. "None under your name." I looked down. My signature wasn't there. My payment wasn't there. My car wasn't in the lot. That was the worst part. My Honda, with everything I owned inside it, was gone. The receptionist smiled politely and said, "Maybe you're confused." I walked backward out of the office, into the gray morning rain. My phone finally had service. One missed voicemail from an unknown number. I played it with shaking hands. It was my own voice whispering from somewhere far away. "Don't come back for the car." I never did. Story 2. There were 5 of us when we checked in. By the time we left, the world only remembered one. My name is Ryan. I was 24 that summer, and my friends and I were driving through Nevada on one of those cheap road trips you plan when you're young enough to think sleep is optional. It was me, my best friend Marcus, his girlfriend Tessa, my cousin Eli, and our friend Jonah. Jonah is the reason I'm telling this, because no one else remembers him. We were heading toward California, windows down, music too loud, fast food wrappers everywhere. The desert stretched forever on both sides of us, flat and dry and glowing orange under the sunset. We joked about getting murdered at a gas station. We joked about haunted motels. We joked about all the things you joke about before one of them stops being funny. Around 9 p.m., Marcus said he was too tired to keep driving. The nearest place was a motel called the Sundowner. It sat alone beside the highway, a low square building with a pool full of sand and a neon sign that buzzed like a trapped insect. The office smelled like cigarettes, even though there was a "No smoking" sign taped to the wall. The man at the desk didn't ask for all our names. "Just mine." "Only one room," he asked. 2 beds, I said. We'll make it work. He looked past me, counting us slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I said. His eyes flicked to Jonah, who was standing by the vending machine. Right, the clerk said. 5. He said it like he was correcting himself, but not because he'd made a mistake. More like he'd remembered what he was supposed to pretend. The room was ugly but fine. 2 beds, stained carpet, air conditioner rattling in the wall. We laughed about it, filmed a stupid video for Instagram, and argued over who got the cleanest pillow. Jonah slept on the floor. I remember that clearly. He made a big dramatic speech about being the sacrificial carpet goblin, then wrapped himself in a blanket and put his backpack under his head. The next morning he was gone. At first, nobody panicked. We figured he went to get snacks or coffee. Jonah was always wandering off. He had this habit of disappearing for 10 minutes and coming back with something weird, like a gas station hot dog at 8 a.m. or a snow globe from a place we hadn't visited. But his backpack was gone. So were his shoes. I checked my phone to call him. His contact wasn't there. I searched Jonah. Nothing. I opened our group chat. The name had changed. What used to be Road Trip Idiots 5 now said Road Trip Idiots 4. Every message Jonah had sent was gone. Not deleted. Gone, like he had never been part of the conversation. I felt cold all over. Guys, I said, where's Jonah? They all looked at me. Tessa frowned. Who? I thought she was messing with me. Jonah, I said. Tall, curly hair, always wears that green hoodie. He slept on the floor last night. Marcus laughed. Bro, nobody slept on the floor. I stared at him. Eli was brushing his teeth by the sink. He turned around with toothpaste foam in his mouth and said, Did you have a nightmare? I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps from the hallway made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. I opened the door. The hallway was empty, but on the carpet outside our room was Jonah's green hoodie. I picked it up with shaking hands. Explain this, I said. Marcus looked at it. Isn't that yours? I backed away from him. That day I tried everything. Photos, videos, social media. In every picture from the trip, there were only 4 of us. Empty space where Jonah should have been. At one gas station, I knew he'd been standing between me and Tessa, holding up 2 bags of chips like an idiot. In the photo, my arm was just raised around nothing. Nobody remembered him. Not his jokes. Not his voice. Not the fact that he existed. Only me. We should have left immediately, but Marcus said I was freaking everyone out and needed sleep. The car wouldn't start anyway. The clerk said the mechanic wouldn't come until morning. So we stayed one more night. I didn't close my eyes. Around 2 a.m., I heard whispering near the bathroom. It sounded like someone quietly repeating names. Marcus, Tessa, Eli, Ryan. Then a pause. Marcus, Tessa, Eli. I sat up. Tessa was gone. Her suitcase was gone. Marcus was asleep beside an empty space in the bed. I shook him awake. Where's Tessa? He blinked at me, irritated. Who's Tessa? I almost hit him. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I needed him to wake up into the same reality I was trapped in. Your girlfriend, I said. You've been dating for 2 years. Marcus stared at me with pity. I'm single, man. I grabbed his phone and opened his photos. Tessa was gone from everyone, but Marcus still had a lock screen picture of the beach from spring break. I remembered Tessa taking that photo. I remembered her laughing because Marcus got sunburned. Now there was no trace of her. Except in the bathroom mirror, written in fog though nobody had showered, were 2 words. She left. Eli wanted to call the police. Marcus wanted to take me to a hospital. I wanted to burn the motel down. The police came after I screamed at the clerk until he called them himself. 2 officers searched the room. They checked the registry. They asked us questions. How many in your party? One officer asked. 4, Marcus said. 3, Eli corrected. I turned to him slowly. Eli blinked. Wait. He looked around the room. Marcus was gone. His duffel bag was gone. The officer's notebook changed in his hand. I watched it happen. 1 second, he had written 4 names. The next second, there were only 2. Ryan. Eli. I started crying. Not loud. Just this helpless, quiet kind of crying that made my chest hurt. The officer asked if I'd taken anything. I told him no. He didn't believe me. That night, Eli and I ran. The car started suddenly, like nothing had ever been wrong with it. We didn't pack. We didn't check out. We just drove into the desert with the motel shrinking behind us in the mirror. For 20 minutes, Eli remembered. He kept saying their names out loud. Jonah. Tessa. Marcus. Jonah. Tessa. Marcus. Then his voice got slower. Jonah. Tessa. Then he frowned. Who's Marcus? I pulled over so fast the tires screamed. Don't do this, I begged. Eli, please. Stay with me. He looked scared, but not because of the motel. Because of me. Ryan, he said carefully, I think you need help. When I looked down at my phone, his name was disappearing from my contacts letter by letter. Eli. Then nothing. The passenger seat was empty. I drove until sunrise alone. It's been 3 years. I have no proof, no photos, no messages, no missing person reports. Their families don't know them. Their schools don't have records. Their birthdays pass, and I'm the only one who notices. But every few months, I get a text from an unknown number. It always says the same thing. Room ready for one. Story 3. The thing sitting in my car looked exactly like me. That's the part one still can't explain, no matter how many times I go over it. My name is Claire. I was 32 when it happened, driving alone from Phoenix to San Diego after visiting my mother. I wasn't in a good place then. I'd just gone through a divorce. I was sleeping badly, eating badly, pretending to everyone that I was starting over, when really I was just trying to get through each day without crying in a parking lot. So when my car started coughing near the California border, I almost cried out of pure exhaustion. The engine light flashed. The steering wheel shuddered. I managed to pull into a motel just off the highway before the car gave out completely. The place was called the Blue Lantern, though the lantern on the sign was red and only half lit. The street looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting, but my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face. The parking lot was almost full, but there were no people around. Just cars sitting under pale lights, wind pushing dust across the pavement. Then I noticed the mirrors. Every car had one attached to the inside of the windshield. Not rear-view mirrors. Extra mirrors. Small, round, silver ones, stuck facing inward, aimed at the driver's seat. I stood there with my bag over my shoulder, staring. The receptionist was a young guy with tired eyes and a red motel vest. He barely looked up when I walked in. "Car trouble?" he asked. "How did you know?" He nodded toward the window. "Everyone stops here for car trouble." I didn't like that answer. He gave me room 11 and said a mechanic came by in the mornings. I asked about the mirrors in the cars. He smiled, but only with his mouth. "Security thing." "For what?" "People leaving things behind." I should have slept in the office chair. I should have called a tow truck and waited outside. But I was tired, and the bed in room 11 looked clean enough, and sometimes your brain chooses denial because fear takes too much energy. I locked the door and called my sister, Megan. She didn't answer. I texted her, made it to a motel. "Car died. I'm okay." Then I lay down fully dressed. At 1:13 a.m., I woke up to a car door closing. It was soft but close. I sat up, heart already racing. Through the curtains, I saw the parking lot glowing under the motel lights. My car was still there, third space from the office, and someone was inside it. At first, I thought it was a thief. Then the person in the driver's seat turned her head. It was me. Same hair, same gray sweatshirt, same tired face. I stopped breathing. She was slumped against the seat like she'd been asleep. Then slowly, she opened her eyes. Even from across the lot, I felt her looking straight at me. I backed away from the window. My phone buzzed. A text from my own number. "Don't come outside." I dropped the phone on the bed. Outside, my car headlights turned on. I ran to the door and shoved the chain into place, then pushed the dresser against it because my hands needed something to do. I called 911. No service. Of course. I looked out again. The other me was backing my car out of the space. But my real car, the one I'd driven, couldn't start. The engine had died completely. This version of me drove it smoothly across the lot. As it passed under the light, she turned and smiled. Not a big horror movie grin. Just a small, tired smile. Like she felt sorry for me. Then she drove onto the highway and disappeared. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on the floor with the lamp off, listening to the building creak and the wind scrape against the door. Around 4 a.m., someone knocked. "Claire," a man's voice said. It was the receptionist. "Your checkout has been processed." I didn't answer. "Claire," he said again, "you need to return the room key." "I'm calling the police," I said, though my phone still had no signal. He sighed. "You already left." A cold pressure spread through my chest. "I'm right here." "No," he said softly. "You checked out last night." The doorknob turned once. The chain held. Then he walked away. At sunrise, I opened the door. The parking lot looked normal, except my car was back in its space. Same dent on the bumper. Same cracked Arizona plate. Same fast food cup in the cup holder. But something was wrong. The extra mirror was attached to my windshield now. I forced myself to walk toward it. The car was unlocked. Inside, the driver's seat was warm. My purse was on the passenger seat, but my license was missing. My phone charger was gone. So was the framed photo keychain Megan had given me years ago. I went to the office. The receptionist looked confused when he saw me. "Can I help you?" "You know who I am," I said. He frowned. "No, ma'am. You checked me in last night." He turned the register toward me. There was my signature, but not my name. The name written beside room 11 was Claire Voss. That is not my last name. My last name was Bennett. I say was because by the time I got home 2 days later, things had started changing. My bank app wouldn't recognize my login. My work email was disabled. Megan called me crying and asked why I'd sent her such a cruel message. "What message?" I asked. She forwarded it. It came from my number, sent at 1:21 a.m. "I'm done being Claire Bennett. Don't look for me." Attached was a photo. Me sitting in my car, smiling at the camera. Except I didn't take it. I went to the police, but everything sounded insane when I said it out loud. A woman who looked like me stole my life from a motel parking lot. My car drove itself away and came back. My last name changed in a register. They wrote down possible identity theft. That was the official term. Identity theft. As if someone had stolen a credit card and not the shape of my face. It's been 8 months. I moved. I changed numbers. I don't drive at night anymore. Sometimes I still see cars with little round mirrors stuck to the windshield. Maybe they're blind spot mirrors. Maybe they're decorations. Maybe I'm damaged now, and I see patterns where there are none. But last week, I got a postcard from San Diego. No message. Just my old keychain taped to the back. And written under it in my handwriting. "Thanks for holding my place." Story 4. The manager told me not to open the last room. That was all he said. Not, "It's under repair." Not, "It's private." Not, "There's nothing there." Just, "Do not open the last room." My name is Ben, and I was 27 when I stayed at the Hillcrest Motor Lodge. I was driving home to Oregon after visiting my dad in Utah, and I only stopped because a snowstorm hit harder than the forecast said it would. The motel was old, tucked at the edge of a mountain town where everything closed by 9 p.m. The office had wood paneling, a dusty candy machine, and a heater that clicked like it was full of insects. The manager was a thin man with silver hair and deep lines around his mouth. He handed me a key for room 18. "Second floor," he said. "Stay away from the last room." I waited for him to explain. He didn't. "What's wrong with it?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Guests hear things." "What kind of things?" He slid the key closer. "Things that make them curious." I almost laughed. I thought it was some small-town creepy guy routine. Maybe he enjoyed scaring travelers. The second floor hallway smelled like bleach and old wood. The carpet had a faded red pattern, and every few feet, a yellow wall sconce flickered weakly. My room was fine, cold but fine. I dropped my bag, turned up the heater, and called my girlfriend, Hannah, to tell her I'd stop for the night. She made me promise not to drive until morning. I promised. Then I heard the crying. It was faint at first. A woman, somewhere down the hall, sobbing like she was trying to keep quiet. I muted the call. "Ben," Hannah asked. "What happened?" "Nothing. I think someone's upset." The crying stopped. Then came 3 knocks from far down the hallway. I opened my door and looked out. Empty. At the very end of the hall was a door with no number. It looked newer than the others. White paint. Brass handle. No peephole. I closed my door and locked it. For the next hour, the crying came and went. Sometimes it sounded like a woman. Sometimes like a child. Once, I swear it sounded like my mother, who had been dead for 6 years. That was when curiosity turned into dread. Because my mother used to cry quietly in the kitchen when she thought I was asleep. And the sound coming from that last room had the same broken rhythm. I told myself it was impossible. Then I heard her voice. "Ben." I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "Ben, please." My whole body went cold. I knew it wasn't her. Of course I knew. But grief is stupid. Grief will drag you toward a cliff if the voice at the bottom sounds familiar enough. I stepped into the hallway. The lights seemed dimmer than before. The door at the end waited. Halfway there, room 12 opened a crack. An old man peered out at me. "Don't," he whispered. I stopped. He looked terrified. "Go back to your room. Put on headphones. Leave at sunrise." "My mother's voice is in there," I said. His face changed. "No," he whispered. "That's what it does." Then the last door opened by itself. Just a few inches. Warm yellow light spilled into the hallway. And from inside my mother said, "I'm cold, honey." I moved before I could think. The old man hissed, "Don't open it." But I did. Inside was not a room. It was another hallway. Same red carpet. Same yellow lights. Same numbered doors. At the far end was a sign hanging from the ceiling. "This way out." I turned around immediately. The door behind me was gone. Not closed. Gone. There was just more hallway stretching in the opposite direction. I ran. I ran toward the sign, passing doors that opened slightly as I went. Behind one, someone whispered my name. Behind another, Hannah's voice begged me to wait. Behind another, I heard myself laughing as a child. The sign kept getting farther away. My phone had no signal, but the screen kept lighting up with missed calls from numbers I didn't know. Then I saw someone ahead. A woman in a bathrobe, barefoot, walking slowly from door to door. "Excuse me," I shouted. She turned. Her eyes were empty with exhaustion. "You're new," she said. "Where's the exit?" She gave a small, sad laugh. "There are signs everywhere." She pointed down the hall. I looked. Now there were 6 signs, all pointing in different directions. "This way out." "Exit here." "Lobby." "Parking lot." "Home." "MOM." I backed away. The woman stepped closer. "Don't follow the voices. Don't sleep in any room with your name on the bed. And if someone asks you to take their place, say no." "What does that mean?" A door opened beside us. Inside was my motel room. Room 18. My bag on the chair. My jacket on the bed. For 1 second, hope hit me so hard I almost cried. Then I saw myself asleep under the blanket. The woman grabbed my arm. "Not yours anymore." The sleeping version of me opened his eyes. I ran again. I don't know how long I was in there. Time didn't work right. Sometimes I passed people. Some begged for help. Some stood facing walls. Some knocked on doors and whispered names. Once, I found a stairwell that went down for 11 floors, but every exit opened into the same hallway. Eventually, I found the old man from room 12. He was sitting on the carpet, holding the room key I'd been given. "I told you not to open it," he said. "How do I get out?" He looked at the key in his palm. "Someone has to replace you." "No, that's how the hallway stays full." I backed away from him. His voice cracked. "Please." I've been here since 1998. He reached for me. I ran until my lungs burned. At some point, I found a door marked office. Inside was the motel lobby. The manager stood behind the desk. He looked older now, much older. "You opened it," he said. "Let me out." "I can't." I noticed then that there were room keys hanging behind him. Hundreds of them. Some had names instead of numbers. One said Ben. I slammed my fists on the counter. "Please." The manager looked almost sorry. "The only way out is to stop being the guest." I didn't understand until he handed me a name tag. Manager. That's when I woke up in the office chair. Morning light came through the window. The snow had stopped. A young couple stood at the counter, asking for a room. My hands were older. My reflection in the glass had silver hair and deep lines around the mouth. I wanted to scream. Instead, I heard myself say, "Second floor. Room 18. I slid them the key. Then, because there was still a small part of me left somewhere inside, I leaned forward and whispered, "Stay away from the last room." Story 5. The clerk at the Alpine Rest Motel never blinked. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the peeling wallpaper or the smell of burnt coffee or the dead moths trapped inside the ceiling light. His eyes, open, still, wet looking under the fluorescent glare. My name is Daniel, and I was 35 when I met him. I worked as a courier then, driving medical supplies between small hospitals across the Midwest. It wasn't exciting work, but I liked the solitude. Long roads, gas station coffee, podcasts, cheap motels. After my divorce, quiet didn't bother me as much as people did. That night, I was somewhere in northern Minnesota, though I couldn't tell you the exact town. Snow was falling hard, my van heater barely worked, and the highway signs were disappearing behind white sheets of wind. The Alpine Rest appeared out of nowhere. A low building surrounded by pine trees, with a sign that said open all night. Inside, a man stood behind the desk. He was maybe 40, maybe 60. It was hard to tell. He had a narrow face, dark hair combed flat, and a green cardigan buttoned to the throat. "Evening," he said. His voice sounded unused. "Need a room," I said. "Just until morning." "Of course." He turned a large ledger toward me. Not a computer. A real book, thick and leather-bound, filled with names. I signed. He watched my hand move across the page. "Long drive." "Too long." "Traveling alone?" I hesitated. "Yeah." He nodded, as if that was the answer he wanted. He gave me room 6. As I took the key, I noticed an old black and white photograph on the wall behind him. The motel looked newer in it, with cars from maybe the 1950s parked outside. A clerk stood in the doorway. Same cardigan, same posture, same eyes. I looked from the photo to the man behind the desk. He smiled faintly. "My grandfather," he said. I hadn't asked. Room 6 was freezing. I turned the heater on and sat on the bed, still wearing my coat, texting my dispatcher that I'd stopped for the night. The message wouldn't send. No service. I wasn't surprised. Bad weather does that. Around midnight, I went back to the office to ask for more blankets. The clerk was still standing in the exact same position. Not sitting, not reading, not moving, just waiting. "Do you ever sleep?" I asked, trying to make it sound like a joke. He looked at me. "I've been on night shift since the motel opened." I laughed a little. He didn't. Then he reached under the desk and handed me 2 folded blankets. His fingers brushed mine. They were cold. Back in my room, I couldn't settle. The heater rattled. Snow tapped the window. Somewhere in the wall, pipes groaned like something turning over in its sleep. At 1:40 a.m., I heard footsteps outside. Slow. Measured. They stopped at my door. I waited. A piece of paper slid under the gap. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then I picked it up. It was a photocopy of my driver's license. Except the date of birth was wrong. The photo was mine. The name was mine. But according to the paper, I had been born in 1921. I opened the door. The walkway was empty. At the office window, the clerk stood behind the desk, watching me through the snow. I went back inside and shoved a chair under the doorknob. That was when I noticed the Bible drawer was open. I hadn't opened it. Inside wasn't a Bible. It was a guest ledger, smaller than the one at the desk, but just as old. I flipped through it, and my stomach tightened. Every page had signatures from different decades. 1958, 1967, 1979, 1994, 2008, and beside each guest name was the clerk's signature as witness. But the clerk's name changed. Walter Reed, Samuel Pike, Martin Cross, Henry Vale. Different names, same handwriting. Then I saw photos tucked into the back of the ledger. Old motel ID badges, newspaper clippings, staff pictures. The clerk appeared in all of them. Not exactly the same. Different haircut, different face shape. Sometimes heavier, sometimes thinner, sometimes wearing glasses. But always the same eyes. Open, still, never blinking. The last photo was recent. It showed the clerk standing beside the motel sign. On the back, written in careful handwriting, current keeper, Elliot Gray. Replacement needed. Below that was my full name. I dropped the photo. The room phone rang. I knew who it was before I answered. "You found the records," the clerk said. "What is this?" "A position." "I'm leaving. The road is closed." "I'll walk." "No," he said gently. "You'll understand soon." The line went dead. I grabbed my bag and keys and ran for the van. The snow was knee-deep now, but I didn't care. I climbed into the driver's seat, turned the key, and nothing happened. The engine clicked once. Then the radio turned on by itself. Static filled the van. Under it, I heard voices, dozens of them, men and women, all whispering at once. "Take the desk. Sign the book. Let us sleep." The office door opened. The clerk stepped out into the snow without a coat. He walked toward me slowly, cardigan untouched by the wind. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. The engine finally caught. I slammed the van into reverse. The clerk stopped in front of the headlights. For the first time, his expression changed. Not anger, relief, like he could already feel his shift ending. I drove straight through the motel's wooden sign. I don't remember hitting the road. I don't remember how far I drove. At some point, the snow stopped all at once, like I had crossed through a curtain. My phone buzzed with service. I called 911 and told them there was something wrong at the Alpine Rest Motel. The dispatcher paused. "Sir, that motel burned down in 1986. I pulled over and threw up in the snow. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was the leather guest ledger. My signature was on the last page. Under it, in handwriting that wasn't mine, someone had written, "Training incomplete." I moved 3 times after that, changed jobs, stopped driving at night. I don't stay in motels anymore, not even nice ones. But sometimes, when I wake up at exactly 3:17 a.m., I feel like I'm standing behind a desk somewhere cold. I can smell burnt coffee. I can hear snow tapping glass. And in the dark reflection of my bedroom window, I see myself wearing a green cardigan, eyes wide open, waiting for the next guest to arrive. Even after escaping, even with the safety of police lights behind me, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face I'd seen through the window. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. Story 6. I used to think dreams were harmless because they ended when you woke up. That was the rule, right? No matter how strange, no matter how terrifying, morning came, your alarm went off and the dream dissolved like fog. That was before room 217. My name is Lena. I was 31 when this happened, driving from Portland to Boise after visiting my sister. I'd planned to do the drive in one day, but a storm rolled in hard around 9 p.m., turning the highway into a black ribbon of rain and headlights. I was exhausted, my hands cramped around the wheel, and when I saw the faded sign for the Silver Pine Motel, I pulled in without thinking twice. The place looked ordinary in that sad roadside way. Buzzing sign, wet gravel lot, soda machine humming outside the office. The woman at the desk was maybe 60, with gray hair pinned tightly behind her head. "One night?" she asked. "Just one," I said. She gave me room 217. The room smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. There was a queen bed, a lamp with a crooked shade, and a framed painting of a lake that looked too dark to be peaceful. I showered, locked the door, put a chair under the handle because I always do that in motels, and fell asleep with the TV murmuring low. The dream started normally. I was in a kitchen I didn't recognize, making coffee. Morning light came through yellow curtains. A man stood behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Morning, Len," he said. I turned around and saw a stranger. He was tall, dark-haired, maybe late 30s, wearing a wedding ring. I knew I should have panicked, but in the dream I didn't. In the dream I knew him. His name was Andrew. He was my husband. We had been married for 6 years. We had a dog named Milo, a mortgage, and a cracked tile near the back door I'd been meaning to replace. Then I woke up. My heart was racing, but I laughed it off. Weird dream. Too much coffee, too much road stress. Then I saw the ring. It was on my left hand, a thin gold band, warm against my skin. I screamed so loudly the people next door banged on the wall. I ripped it off and threw it across the room. My hands shook while I searched my bag, convinced I'd somehow packed it by mistake. I hadn't. I had never owned a wedding ring. At checkout, I tried to mention it casually. "Do you ever have people say weird things about room 217? I asked. The woman at the desk stopped writing. Only for a second. Then she smiled. "People say weird things about every room." I drove away telling myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe some previous guest left it on the bed, and I put it on half asleep. Maybe I was stressed. Maybe I was losing it. But by noon, I remembered Andrew's phone number. I didn't want to. It just sat there in my mind, complete and clear. I pulled over at a gas station and typed it into my contacts search. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text said, "You forgot your ring." I dropped the phone between the seats and sat there breathing like I'd been running. I blocked the number. I drove home. I told no one except my best friend, Maya, and she tried to be comforting, but I could hear the worry in her voice. "Maybe you should see a doctor," she said gently. I did. Blood work, sleep questions, stress questions. Everything normal. 2 weeks later, I found myself looking up Silver Pine Motel reviews at 2 a.m. Most were boring. Dirty towels. Bad Wi-Fi. No breakfast. Then I found one from a man named Eric. Stayed in 217. Had dream I was in prison. Woke up with tattoo on my wrist. Never had tattoo before. Don't stay here. I stared at that review until my eyes watered. Another one said, "My wife remembers a child we never had." Another, "I woke up speaking Spanish." I don't know Spanish. I should have closed the laptop and never thought about it again. Instead, I drove back. I know how stupid that sounds. Believe me, I've replayed that decision 1,000 times. But fear and curiosity are cousins. Sometimes they sound exactly the same in your head. This time, a man was at the front desk. Younger, maybe 40, with tired eyes. "I need room 217, I said. He looked up slowly. "That room's unavailable. I stayed there 2 weeks ago." His face changed. "Then you shouldn't be here." My mouth went dry. "What is that room?" He glanced toward the hallway behind him. "It doesn't show dreams. That's what people get wrong." "What does it do?" He leaned closer and whispered, "It tests other versions of your life. Then it decides which one fits better." I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps from the hallway made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. Behind him, at the end of the hall, stood Andrew, the man from my dream. He looked exactly the same. Dark hair, wedding ring, gentle expression. "Lena," he said softly, "come home." I ran. Not gracefully, not bravely. I knocked over a brochure stand, slammed into the office door, and slipped in the rain outside. I could hear the clerk shouting behind me, but not at me. At him. "She's not yours yet." I got into my car, hands trembling so badly I dropped the keys twice. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. Andrew came out of the office. He wasn't running. That was worse. He just walked toward my car with this calm, patient sadness, like I was the unreasonable one. I started the engine and peeled out of the lot, so fast gravel sprayed behind me. I didn't stop driving for 80 miles. When I finally pulled into a crowded rest stop, I looked at my left hand. The ring was back, only now there was a pale mark beneath it, like I'd worn it for years. It's been 8 months. I moved apartments, changed my number, got rid of that car. I don't sleep well anymore because some nights I dream of the kitchen with yellow curtains. Andrew is always there, sitting at the table waiting. The worst part is that every time I wake up, I remember a little more. Our first date, our wedding song, the way he cried when our dog died. Memories from a life I never lived are slowly filling the spaces where my real life used to be. And last week, Maya called me crying. She said she had a dream about me. In it, she came over to my house. Not my apartment, my house. She said I was married, wearing a yellow sweater, smiling like nothing was wrong. Then she said, "Lena, who's Andrew?" I didn't answer, because behind her voice on the call, faintly, I heard a dog barking. And I remembered his name. Milo. Story 7. The fog came out of nowhere. I know people say that all the time, but I mean it literally. One minute, I was driving down a county road in northern Michigan with clear headlights and pine trees on both sides. The next, the world outside my windshield turned white. My name is Aaron. I was 34 then, working as a delivery contractor, mostly hauling small freight between towns. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid my rent and kept me moving. I liked the road. I liked quiet highways, gas station coffee, old radio stations fading in and out. I liked being alone. That night changed that. It was late October, just after midnight. I had missed a turn because my GPS froze, and instead of pulling over, I kept driving, irritated and tired. The fog thickened until I couldn't see more than 10 feet ahead. Then I saw the sign. Motel. It glowed blue through the fog. At first, the name read Hollow Rest. I blinked, and it read Pineview. When I turned into the gravel lot, it read Last Light. I sat in my van for a moment, engine ticking, rain tapping softly on the windshield. The street looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting, but my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face. Still, I was exhausted. I told myself old signs flicker. Fog distorts things. I needed sleep, not a mystery. Inside the office, the air smelled like dust and burnt coffee. A receptionist stood behind the counter, a thin man with slick back hair and a name tag that simply said clerk. "Room?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just one night." He slid a key across the counter before I gave him my name. Room 9. I looked toward the lobby. 3 people sat on a faded couch watching an old TV. The screen showed nothing but static. No one spoke. No one moved. Their faces glowed pale in the flickering light. "Bad signal," I said, trying to joke. The clerk didn't smile. "They like what's on." I took the key. Room 9 was clean but freezing. The heater rattled, the curtains smelled damp, and the bathroom mirror had tiny black spots around the edges. I locked the door, sat on the bed, and called my brother. No signal. That didn't surprise me. Middle of nowhere. Then the TV turned on by itself. Static. I grabbed the remote and shut it off. 3 seconds later, it clicked back on. The static hissed louder this time, almost like whispering. I unplugged it. The screen stayed lit. That was when I decided I wasn't staying. I grabbed my duffel, opened the door, and stepped outside. The fog was gone. In its place was darkness. Not night. Not shadow. Darkness. It stood beyond the walkway like a wall, thick and solid, swallowing the parking lot, the trees, everything. My van was only 20 feet away, but I couldn't see it. I stepped forward and held out my hand. My fingers touched something cold. Hard. Smooth. Like glass made of black air. I backed up slowly. A voice behind me said, You only find us when your exit has already been removed. The clerk stood in the doorway of the office. I felt my stomach drop. What does that mean? He tilted his head. It means you should go back to your room. I didn't. I ran toward where I knew my van should be, shoulder first into the darkness. Pain shot through my arm as I hit the invisible wall and fell backward onto the wet pavement. The people from the lobby were outside now, standing in a line, watching. Their eyes reflected the blue motel sign. I scrambled up and ran past them into the office. There had to be another door, a phone, something. The clerk didn't try to stop me. That scared me more. Behind the counter was a hallway. The hallway was longer than the building. I know that's impossible, but I saw it. Doors stretched down both sides, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, each with a brass number. Some doors had old music playing behind them. Some had people crying. One had my mother's voice behind it. "Aaron," she called softly. My mother had been dead for 4 years. I froze. The door was number 12. "Aaron, honey, I'm cold." I wanted to open it. God help me, I wanted to. Then I heard the clerk behind me. That's how most people choose their room. I ran back through the office and slammed into the lobby wall, sobbing from panic. The 3 guests were on the couch again, watching static. One of them, an elderly woman, turned her head slightly. "Don't watch too long," she whispered. "It teaches you where you belong." I grabbed the old rotary phone on the desk and dialed 911. The line rang once. Then a woman answered. "Last Light Motel. How may I connect you?" I hung up. For hours, I moved between the office, my room, and the walkway outside, trying every window, every door, every stupid trick my panicked brain could invent. The darkness never moved. The fog never returned. The guests never stopped watching TV. Around 4 a.m., the clerk knocked on my door. "Checkout is at dawn," he said. I didn't answer. "You can leave then," he continued, "if you remember which road brought you here." I stayed awake on the floor with my back against the bed and my room key clenched in my fist. Just before sunrise, the TV came on again. This time, the static cleared. I saw my van driving through fog. I saw myself behind the wheel. But I wasn't alone. The clerk sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. Then the TV snapped off. Outside, birds began singing. Real birds. I opened the door. The parking lot was there. My van was there. The motel sign now read "Welcome INN," sun-bleached and dead, like it hadn't worked in years. The office was locked. No clerk. No guests. No TV static. I drove until I reached a gas station, then called the county sheriff. 2 deputies followed me back. There was no motel. Just an empty lot with cracked pavement and weeds growing through it. One deputy laughed and said I must have slept in my van and dreamed it. Maybe I would have believed that, except my duffel bag was still in room 9. 2 days later, it arrived at my apartment in a cardboard box with no return address. Everything was inside. Clothes, toothbrush, receipt from a gas station, and one extra thing, a motel key. Room 12. I keep it in a drawer now, wrapped in duct tape inside a metal tin. I've moved twice, and it always comes with me somehow. I don't bring it. I don't pack it. It just appears. Sometimes late at night, my TV flickers to static for 1 second. Just one. And in that second, I hear my mother's voice from somewhere far away, still calling my name. Story 8. I worked the night desk at the Birchwood Motel for 7 months, and for most of that time, the strangest thing about the place was how boring it was. My name is Caleb. I was 24, freshly dropped out of community college, living with my uncle in a small town outside Topeka. The Birchwood sat off Route 6, between a closed diner and a gas station that sold more lottery tickets than gas. Truckers came through. Couples argued in the parking lot. Families stayed one night on the way somewhere better. The owner, Mr. Daly, hired me because I didn't mind nights. Mostly quiet, he told me. Just don't sleep at the desk. The only thing he warned me about was room 104. Long-term guest, he said. Name's Mr. Vale. Don't bother him unless he calls. I asked how long he'd been there. Mr. Daly paused. Long enough. Mr. Vale paid cash every Monday. At least, that's what the ledger said. I never saw him do it. His room was always marked occupied, but housekeeping never cleaned it. No one delivered food. No one visited. I asked one of the housekeepers, Denise, about him. She crossed herself, which I thought was dramatic. Quiet man, she said. Too quiet. The first complaint came from a woman in room 109. She came to the desk at 2:13 a.m., barefoot, shaking. There's a man in my room, she said. I stood up fast. Did he break in? I don't know. He was just sitting there. I grabbed the master key and called the security guard, Mike, who was usually asleep in his car. We went to 109 together. No one was inside. The woman refused to go back in. She slept in the lobby until morning and left without asking for a refund. 2 nights later, a trucker from room 112 came to the desk. Same story. A man sitting in the corner, hands folded, watching him sleep. Old guy, the trucker said, rubbing his face. Gray suit. Wet hair. Didn't blink. My stomach tightened. What did he do? Nothing. That's the problem. I checked the security cameras. No one entered 112 except the trucker. I told myself guests got tired. People hallucinate when they're half asleep. Old motels make weird shadows. I wanted to believe that. Then I saw him. It was 3:40 a.m. I was behind the desk, eating vending machine pretzels and watching rain slide down the front window. The lobby lights buzzed softly above me. A man walked past the window outside. Slow. Gray suit. Wet hair. I got up and stepped outside. The walkway was empty. My heart sank into my stomach as the door clicked shut behind me, and I realized I was completely alone. Someone was watching, and I had no way out. From the far end of the motel, room 104's curtain moved. I went back inside and locked the lobby door. The next morning, I told Mr. Daly. He didn't look surprised. You saw Vale, he said. So he does leave his room? Mr. Daly stared at the coffee pot like he wished it would answer for him. No, he said quietly. He doesn't. That afternoon, I checked the old paper files in the storage closet. Most were receipts, maintenance forms, tax junk. But in the back of a metal cabinet, I found a newspaper clipping from 1989. Local man disappears from Birchwood Motel. The photo showed a younger Mr. Daly standing outside room 104. Beside him was a blurry picture of a man in a gray suit. Edward Vale. According to the article, Vale had been staying long-term while working at a nearby factory. One night, guests heard arguing from his room. By morning, he was gone. His clothes were still folded. His car was still parked outside. His key was on the dresser. No body. No arrest. No explanation. I brought the clipping to Denise. She sighed like she'd been waiting for me to find it. This place keeps things, she said. What does that mean? She looked toward the rooms. Some people check out. Some don't. That night, I watched the cameras with Mike. We aimed one directly at room 104. The door never opened. At 2:58 a.m., a guest in room 107 called the desk. There was no voice at first. Only breathing. Then a whisper. He's in here. Mike and I ran. Room 107 was locked from the inside. The guest, a college kid, opened it with tears in his eyes. He pointed to the corner near the bathroom. Empty. He was there, he kept saying. He was smiling. We checked everywhere. Nothing. When I returned to the desk, camera 4 had frozen. Room 104's door was open on the screen. But when I looked out the lobby window, the actual door was closed. I rewound the footage. For 3 hours, the camera showed the door closed. Then, for exactly 1 frame, Mr. Vale stood directly in front of the lens. Face inches away. Eyes empty. Mouth slightly open, as if he was about to speak. Mike quit before sunrise. I should have quit too. But I needed money, and fear gets easier to ignore when rent is due. The last night I worked there, a family checked into room 110. Parents and a little boy, maybe 6. Around midnight, the boy came into the lobby holding a blanket. There's a man in our room, he said. I froze. Where are your parents? Asleep, he whispered. He told me not to wake them. I grabbed the phone to call 911. Before I could dial, the boy looked past me. His face went blank. He says you shouldn't call. I turned. Mr. Vale stood behind the counter. Not reflected in the window. Not on the camera monitor. But there. He smelled like rainwater and old pennies. His gray suit hung wrong on his thin body. His skin wasn't pale exactly. It was faded, like an old photograph. "Mr. Vale," I whispered. His mouth moved before sound came out. "My room is occupied." Then the lights went out. I don't remember running, only pieces of it. My shoulder hitting the office door. My shoes slipping on wet pavement. The little boy crying behind me. Me screaming for his parents. Room doors opening. People shouting. When the police came, every guest was outside except one. The man from room 104. The room was empty. Not just empty like no one was there. Empty like no one had ever lived there. No bed imprint. No clothes. No smell. No dust except one clean rectangle on the dresser, where something had sat for a long time. The ledger at the desk had changed too. Room 104 vacant. Mr. Daly told the police I'd had a panic attack. Maybe he believed that. Maybe he needed to. I quit that morning. 2 months later, the Birchwood burned down. Electrical fire, they said. No one was hurt. I drove past the lot once after they cleared the debris. Nothing left but cracked foundation and weeds. But near the back, exactly where room 104 used to be, there was a chair. Old. Wooden. Facing the road. And sitting on it was a folded gray suit. Story 9. The first thing I noticed was that my hotel room smelled like my old apartment. Not exactly, but close enough to make me stop in the doorway with my suitcase still in my hand. It had that same stale carpet smell, mixed with cold air from an overworked AC unit and something faintly sweet, like the vanilla candle my ex used to burn when we were trying to pretend we were still happy. I know that sounds like a weird thing to remember, but smells can drag you backward faster than photos. My name is Aaron. I was 31 when this happened, and I was driving from Denver to Portland for a new job I wasn't even sure I wanted. At the time, my life felt like it had been packed into boxes before I had figured out what I was leaving behind. I had just ended a long relationship, sold half my furniture, and convinced myself that moving across the country was starting fresh, even though most of it felt like running away. I stopped for the night at a hotel just outside Boise. It wasn't a dump, but it wasn't nice either. One of those business traveler places near the highway with beige walls, fake plants, vending machines that hum too loudly, and carpet patterns designed to hide stains. The receptionist was an older woman with silver hair and tired eyes. She barely looked at me while checking me in. "Room 214, she said, sliding a white keycard across the counter. "Elevators down the hall." I thanked her, grabbed the card, and went upstairs. Room 214 was ordinary. 2 queen beds, a small desk, a TV, a painting of mountains that looked like it belonged in every hotel in America. I dropped my bag, showered, and tried to sleep. But I couldn't. The highway outside kept hissing with passing trucks. The walls clicked and settled. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed once, then stopped too suddenly. Around midnight, I got up to get ice. The hallway was empty and dim, washed in that yellow hotel lighting that makes everything look slightly sick. I walked to the ice machine, filled the bucket, and was heading back when I realized I'd forgotten my room number. I know. Stupid. I stood there holding the bucket, staring at the identical doors. 212, 213, 214. I laughed quietly at myself and went to 214. I tapped the keycard. The light flashed green. But when I opened the door, it wasn't my room. A man sat at the desk with his back to me, wearing a white dress shirt and speaking into a headset. The room was cleaner than mine. A suit jacket hung over the chair. A laptop glowed in front of him. He turned, annoyed. And then my entire body went cold. It was me. Not someone who looked like me. Not a cousin or a stranger with similar features. It was me, maybe a little thinner, better haircut, expensive watch. He stared at me like I was a housekeeping mistake. "Can I help you?" he asked. I couldn't speak. His voice was mine too, but sharper, more confident. I backed out and let the door shut. For a few seconds, I just stood in the hallway, breathing hard, holding the ice bucket like an idiot. Then I looked at the door number, 214. My heart sank into my stomach as the door clicked shut behind me, and I realized I had opened something I wasn't supposed to open. I told myself I was exhausted. I had driven 9 hours. Maybe I had walked to the wrong floor. Maybe the doors had gotten mixed in my head. I hurried down the hall, found the elevator, checked the floor. Second floor. I went back to 214 and tried the card again. Green light. This time it was my room. My suitcase was on the luggage rack. My jacket was on the bed. The ice in the bucket rattled because my hands were shaking. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I considered leaving immediately, but there was a storm rolling in. Rain slapped the windows in thick sheets, and the highway alert on my phone warned of low visibility. So I told myself I'd stay one more night. That was my first mistake. The second was keeping the key card. I should have gone to the front desk and asked for a new one. I should have thrown it away. But by that afternoon, curiosity had started working on me like a sickness. Maybe I had hallucinated it. Maybe someone else had been in my room, and I'd imagined his face because I was half asleep. At around 3 p.m., I stepped into the hallway with the card in my hand. I tried room 216 first. Green light. Inside, a little boy sat cross-legged on the carpet watching cartoons. He had my eyes, my cowlick, my childhood scar above his eyebrow from when I fell off my bike at 8 years old. A woman's voice called from the bathroom, "Aaron, don't sit so close to the TV." I shut the door before she came out. My pulse hammered in my ears. I tried 219. Green light. Inside, I saw myself again, older this time. Maybe in my 50s. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing a hospital bracelet, staring at a blank TV screen. His face looked hollow. A prescription bottle sat on the nightstand. He didn't turn when I opened the door. He just said, "You shouldn't be here." I closed it. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps from the hallway made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. At the far end of the hall, near the vending machines, a man stood watching me. He looked exactly like me too. Only this version seemed wrong somehow. His hair was messy. His shirt was wrinkled. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from not sleeping. He held a key card between 2 fingers. "Stop using it," he said. His voice was low, urgent. I couldn't move. "What is this?" I asked. He walked closer, glancing over his shoulder like he was afraid someone would hear us. "It doesn't open rooms," he whispered. "It swaps people." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense." "No," he said. "It doesn't. But it happens anyway." He looked past me toward room 214. "You still have your room?" "Yes." "Then don't open another door. Pack your things. Go downstairs. Leave through the front. Do not give anyone your card. Do not trade cards. Do not let the desk make you a new one." "Who are you?" I asked, even though I already knew. His face twisted like he wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. "I was you," he said. 2 doors ago." Before I could ask what that meant, the elevator dinged. He flinched. "Go," he said. "Now." The elevator doors opened. The receptionist from downstairs stepped out, pushing a housekeeping cart. But she wasn't wearing a hotel uniform anymore. She was wearing a black coat, and her silver hair was pinned neatly back. She looked at me, then at the other Aaron. Her expression didn't change. "There you are," she said. The other Aaron ran. He bolted toward the stairwell, and the receptionist followed without rushing, which somehow made it worse. She moved with the calm patience of someone who knew the building belonged to her. I didn't wait. I ran back to 214, threw my clothes into my bag, and grabbed my phone charger with shaking hands. I kept looking at the mirror above the desk, half expecting my reflection to do something without me. At the door I paused. The hallway was silent. I tapped my keycard. The light flashed red. I tried again. Red. My breath caught. "No," I whispered. I tried it upside down, wiped it on my shirt, pressed it harder. Red. 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 From behind the door, my phone buzzed on the desk. I turned. The screen lit up with a text from my mother. Made it to Portland yet? Call me when you can. But the phone wasn't where I had left it. It was beside a wallet that wasn't mine. I opened it with numb fingers. Inside was my driver's license. Same face. Same name. Different address. Different birthday. My hand started trembling so hard I dropped it. Then someone knocked from the hallway. 3 soft taps. "Aaron," a voice called. It was my voice. Not through the door behind me. From outside it. I backed away. The handle turned slowly. The door opened, and there I was. The successful version from the first room. White shirt. Expensive watch. Calm eyes. He smiled like he'd been expecting me. "I'm sorry," he said. "But you understand, right? Some of us got better lives than others." I couldn't speak. He stepped into the room, holding my original key card. The one that opened 214. Behind him, the hallway stretched impossibly long, doors on both sides, all closed, all waiting. I pushed past him and ran. I don't remember deciding to do it. I just moved. My shoulder slammed into his chest. He shouted, grabbed my jacket, but I slipped out of it and stumbled into the hallway. The lights flickered. Every door opened at once. Not fully. Just a crack. Faces watched from inside. Mine at 16. Mine at 40. Mine with a wedding ring. Mine with bruised-looking eyes. Mine laughing quietly. Mine crying without sound. I sprinted toward the stairs. The receptionist stood at the end of the hall. She didn't chase me. She just held out her hand. "Key card, please." I ran the other way. The hallway shouldn't have been that long. I know it shouldn't. I passed room 214 3 times. Then 216. Then 214 again. My lungs burned. My feet slipped on the carpet. Finally, I saw the elevator. I jammed the button until the doors opened, threw myself inside, and hit lobby. The doors closed just as the receptionist reached them. For 1 second, through the narrowing gap, she looked almost sorry. "You'll check out eventually," she said. The elevator dropped. When it opened, I was in the lobby. Morning sunlight came through the glass doors. Real sunlight. Cars moved outside. A family checked in at the desk. The same receptionist stood there, smiling politely at them. I walked past without stopping. Outside, rainwater soaked my socks as I crossed the parking lot. My car was still there. My suitcase was not. My jacket was gone. My wallet was gone. But the keys were in my pocket. I drove until the hotel disappeared behind me. That was 3 years ago. I live in Oregon now, under my real name, or at least I think it's still mine. I replaced my license. I changed my phone number. I don't stay in hotels if I can avoid it. If I have to, I wedge a chair under the door and sleep with the lights on. Sometimes, though, I get emails meant for another errand. Work schedules from companies I never joined. Appointment reminders in cities I've never visited. Once, a wedding photographer sent me a gallery link. In the pictures, I was standing beside a woman I'd never met, smiling like I belonged there. Last month, a plain white envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a hotel key card. Written on it in black marker were 2 words. Room 214. Story 10. I used to think the saddest places in the world were hospitals, airports, and roadside motels. Hospitals because people wait there for news they're afraid to hear. Airports because everyone is either leaving someone or trying to get back to someone. Motels because they feel like places people pass through when they don't have anywhere better to be. At least, that's what I thought before I stayed at the Marigold Motor Lodge. My name is Nathan. I was 28 then, living out of my car and picking up temporary jobs wherever I could. I wasn't homeless in the way people picture it, but I was close enough that I stopped correcting anyone. I had a duffel bag, an old Honda Civic, a cracked phone screen, and about $200 to my name. I was driving through western Pennsylvania looking for warehouse work when my car started making a grinding noise near a small town called Ellis Creek. It was raining that day, not hard, just steady and cold, the kind that makes everything look gray and tired. I found the Marigold Motor Lodge off a Tulane road near a closed diner and a gas station with one working pump. The sign out front buzzed in weak yellow letters. Vacancy. Below that, taped crookedly to the office window, was a handwritten sign. Discounted rooms available. Ask about light check-in help. I almost laughed when I read it. Light check-in help sounded like something a place made up when it couldn't afford staff. Inside, the lobby smelled like coffee that had been sitting too long and old carpet cleaner. A brass bell sat on the counter. Behind it stood a man in his 60s with pale skin, a thin gray mustache, and a name tag that said Mr. Bell. Not Bell. Mr. Bell. Need a room? He asked. Just one night, I said. Maybe two, depending on my car. He looked me over the way people do when they can tell you're broke. We can do $25 a night, he said. If you don't mind helping during check-in hours. What kind of help? Simple things. Handing keys over. Taking names. Telling people where to park. Nothing heavy. The street looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting, but my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face. Still, $25 was $25. I said yes. He slid a registration card toward me. At the bottom, beneath the normal stuff like name, phone number, and license plate, there was one sentence in smaller print. Guest agrees to assist the lodge as needed for the duration of stay. I signed it. That was the first thing I wish I could undo. My room was 6, at the far end of the motel. The place was shaped like a long horseshoe around a parking lot full of puddles. Every door was painted dark green. Every window had the same faded curtains. At first, nothing seemed that strange. I slept badly because the heater clicked all night and someone in the next room coughed through the walls. In the morning, I took my car to the mechanic, who told me he couldn't even look at it until Monday. That meant I had at least 4 days to kill. Around 4 p.m., Mr. Bell knocked on my door. "Check-in help," he said. I followed him to the office. There were already 2 other guests behind the counter. A woman named Lena, maybe around 40, with tired eyes and a purple raincoat, and a college-aged guy named Chris, who kept joking about how this was the weirdest Airbnb he'd ever stayed in, even though it wasn't an Airbnb. Mr. Bell showed us what to do. "Smile," he said. "Take the guest's name. Give them a room. Say, 'Welcome to the Marigold. We're glad you found us.'" He made us repeat it. Lena laughed awkwardly. Chris did a fake customer service voice. I played along. "Welcome to the Marigold," I said. "We're glad you found us." The words felt silly in my mouth. For the first hour, it really was harmless. A trucker checked in, then an older couple, then a woman with 2 kids who looked too exhausted to speak. We handed over keys, pointed to rooms, and wrote plate numbers in a ledger. But after a while, I noticed Lena wasn't blinking much. She stood at the counter, hands folded, smiling at the door even when no one was there. "You okay?" I asked. She turned to me slowly. "Welcome to the Marigold," she said. "We're glad you found us." I gave a nervous laugh. "Yeah, you don't have to keep saying it." Her smile twitched, like she wanted to stop but couldn't. Chris noticed too. "Dude," he whispered to me, "this place is creepy as hell." I agreed, but I needed the discount. That's how people get trapped in bad situations. Not because they don't see the red flags, but because they can't afford to leave. The next morning, Lena was behind the counter again. Only now she wore a Marigold Motor Lodge cardigan. Dark green. Gold stitching. I didn't remember seeing one before. "Where'd you get that?" I asked. She looked down at it, confused, like she hadn't realized she was wearing it. "Mr. Bell said it fits," she said. Chris didn't show up for check-in help that evening. I found him outside room 11, sitting on the curb with his phone in his hand. "My mom called me," he said, and for like 10 seconds, I couldn't remember what she called me. "What do you mean?" He rubbed his face. "She said, Chris," and I thought, that isn't right. That doesn't sound like me. I wanted to tell him he was just tired, but I had started feeling it too. Small things at first. I forgot the name of the mechanic. Then I forgot what day it was. Then, while brushing my teeth, I looked at myself in the mirror and had this empty little second where my face didn't feel familiar. That night, I packed my bag. I decided I'd sleep in my car if I had to. When I opened my door, Mr. Bell was standing outside. He held a clipboard against his chest. "Leaving early?" he asked. I tried to keep my voice calm. "My car's fine. I'm heading out. It's still at the mechanic." I froze. "I never told you that." His smile stayed polite. "You're scheduled for check-in help." "I'm done helping." He looked genuinely disappointed, like I'd broken a promise. "You signed in," he said. "Everyone helps until they're checked out. Then check me out." Mr. Bell tapped his pen against the clipboard. "Oh, Nathan," he said softly. "You're not ready." The way he said my name made my skin crawl. I stepped around him and walked toward the parking lot. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling, as I fumbled for my car keys. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. My car wasn't there. The space outside room 6 was empty. I turned back. Mr. Bell was gone. But the office light was on, and inside, Lena stood behind the counter, smiling through the glass. Beside her was Chris. He wore a green cardigan now too. I ran, not toward the office, away from it, down the road in the rain, past the dead diner, past the gas station, toward the dark line of trees where the highway should have been. I ran until my chest hurt. After maybe 10 minutes, headlights appeared behind me. I waved my arms, desperate. The vehicle slowed. It was a shuttle van with Marigold Motor Lodge painted on the side. The driver leaned over and opened the passenger window. It was Chris. His face was calm. Too calm. "Need a room?" he asked. I stumbled backward. "Chris, what are you doing?" He blinked at me. For a second, something moved behind his eyes. Recognition. Fear. A person trapped behind a desk in his own head. Then his smile came back. "Welcome to the Marigold," he said. "We're glad you found us." I ran into the trees. Branches slapped my face. Mud sucked at my shoes. I could hear the van idling on the road, but it didn't follow. It didn't have to. Somehow I knew that. After a while, I saw lights ahead. For one stupid, hopeful moment, I thought I'd reached a house. Then I stepped out of the trees into the motel parking lot. The Marigold sign buzzed above me. Vacancy. I dropped to my knees in the wet gravel. I don't know how long I stayed there. Eventually, the office door opened. Lena walked out with an umbrella. She held it over me like she was doing something kind. "You'll get sick," she said. "Please," I whispered. "I want to leave." Her face softened. For just 1 second, she looked like a tired woman in a purple raincoat again, not whatever the motel had made her. "Me too," she said. Then her smile returned. She helped me stand and guided me inside. The next few days are hard to remember clearly. I remember standing behind the counter. I remember the bell ringing. I remember my hand writing names in the ledger without me telling it to. I remember saying the welcome line so many times it stopped sounding like words. A man named David checked in on Tuesday. He said he was only staying one night. By Wednesday, he was carrying towels to room 4. A young couple checked in Friday. By Sunday, the woman was answering the office phone, and the man was repainting parking lines in the rain. Every guest became useful. Every guest became staff. And every time a new traveler arrived, confused and tired and grateful for the discount, Mr. Bell would look at one of us and nod. Then we would smile. We would say the line. We would hand them a key. The turning point came when a woman arrived with a little girl asleep in the back seat. The woman looked about my age, exhausted, scared. She asked if we had a cheap room because she only had cash. Mr. Bell looked at me. "Room 8, he said. I reached for the key. Then the girl in the car woke up and pressed her face to the window. She looked directly at me. I don't know why that broke through when nothing else had. Maybe because she looked so small. Maybe because I saw myself in that woman, desperate enough to ignore the feeling that something was wrong. My hand stopped. The key hung from the hook. Mr. Bell's voice sharpened. "Nathan." Hearing my name felt like being slapped awake. Nathan. I was Nathan. I had a mother in Ohio who left voicemails I never returned. I had a sister named Rachel. I hated black coffee. I used to draw cartoons in the margins of job applications. I was not staff. I grabbed the ledger instead of the key and swung it hard into the front desk lamp. The lobby went dark. Someone screamed. Mr. Bell grabbed my arm, but I tore away and shouted at the woman, "Drive. Don't stay here. Go." She didn't ask questions. Thank God, she didn't ask questions. Her tires shrieked as she sped out of the lot. For the first time since I had arrived, Mr. Bell looked angry. Not annoyed, not disappointed, angry. The emergency lights flickered on, painting the lobby red. Around me, the other staff stood perfectly still. Lena, Chris, David, the couple, the trucker. Their faces were blank, but their eyes were wet. "After him," Mr. Bell said. Nobody moved. Lena looked at me. Then she stepped aside, leaving the office door clear. I ran. This time, I didn't go toward the road or the trees. I went behind the motel, where I had seen a drainage ditch during daylight. I slipped down the muddy slope, crawled through filthy water under a rusted fence, and came out behind the closed diner. I kept running until I reached the gas station. The cashier called 911 after seeing my face. Police came, then more police. I told them everything, or at least as much as I could without sounding insane. They searched the Marigold. By then, Mr. Bell was gone. So were most of the guests. The rooms were empty except for luggage, half-used shampoo bottles, phones plugged into walls, wallets in drawers, and dozens of green cardigans hanging in the office closet. In the ledger, they found names going back years. Hundreds of them. Some were listed as guests. Some had been crossed out and rewritten under staff. My name was on the last page. Nathan Reed, room 6, pending. I still don't know what that means. That was almost 2 years ago. My car was eventually found at the mechanic, exactly where I'd left it. My bag was never recovered. Neither were Lena or Chris. The motel was shut down for a while. I checked online a few months later and saw that the property had been sold. Then the listing disappeared. Sometimes I wonder if the building itself was the problem, or Mr. Bell, or that little sentence on the registration card that no desperate person would ever stop to read. I have a job now, a real apartment, a lock on my door that I check 3 times every night. But sometimes, when I'm tired, I catch myself smiling at strangers too long. Once, at work, a customer walked in from the rain and asked if we were still open. Without thinking, I almost said it. "Welcome to the Marigold. We're glad you found us." I bit my tongue so hard it hurt. Even after escaping, even with the safety of police lights behind me, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the faces behind that motel counter. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. So if you ever see a cheap motel offering a discount in exchange for light help, keep driving. No matter how tired you are, no matter how friendly the person at the desk seems. Some places don't hire staff. They collect them,